I think we're live, bro.
We're live. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I want to welcome your brother Mahdi on my channel, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
I'm happy you're here. Alhamdulillah, you took the time, although I'm not really that popular on the YouTube scene.
No problem, Mahdi. We all start somewhere. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so inshallah, I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna just give a quick overview of what we are going to try and discuss in this next hour, inshallah, and then we're gonna get right at it, inshallah. So first, I'm gonna ask Brother Mahdi to talk about himself for a little bit. We're gonna talk about the topics of haya, of masculinity. We're gonna talk about inshallah, if the time allows, social media and the Muslim girls, and we're gonna talk about the red pill from an Islamic perspective, arguments for and against, and and then that will be it, inshallah. So let's start right off. Brother Mahdi, tell us about yourself. What's your history? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, from a perspective of the online stuff that I do, I've got quite an interesting life, let's say. I got married very young. I got married at the age of 16. Alhamdulillah, my parents facilitated that for me. It wasn't an arranged marriage. I actually met the sister in college. She was in my class, and I remember on Eid morning, I went home. So I went home to my parents, and I was like, how am I gonna drop this? How am I gonna tell my dad I found a girl I want to marry and I'm 16? Now, I was always raised, my father used to always tease me, Mahdi, when you're gonna get married, yallah, you're getting old. And he would talk to me like that from the age of like 5, right? So I always knew that I could have this discussion with him. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. He made it easy for me to be able to have that discussion. So I decided Eid morning will be the day that I drop it to him. And I remember he woke up, he was still half asleep, he had sleep in his eyes. And I approached him and I said to him, Baba, there's a girl that I've met in college and I want to marry her, and her dad wants to meet you today at Eid Salah. I just like vomited it all out at once. And he was like, he didn't even say anything. And then, he met my father, met her father at Eid Salah. And 6 weeks later, less than that, maybe 3 weeks later, actually, we were married. From start to finish, it was 6 weeks. From when I first started talking to her to when we actually got married, only 6 weeks elapsed. So I got married for the first time at 16. We had our first kid at 17, second child at 18, third child at 19, all boys. And then when I was 20, one of our sons died. And then we had another son at 23 or 22. I can't remember now. We had our first daughter at 20 when I was 25, I think. No, 24. And then I took on a second wife when I was 25. And then I took on a third wife when I was 27. And then I went through my first divorce and second divorce. The first wife left, the second wife left. Now, alhamdulillah, right now I have one wife. And lots and lots and lots of action-packed drama in between all of that. So I knew that I've always felt like I have a lot of experiences to share, particularly with young men. Mistakes that I have made myself, booby traps to avoid, to watch out for, things not to do, things to do. And that ties in nicely with this whole red pill thing. And for me, red pill, I discovered it purely by chance. I wasn't looking for it. I was, alhamdulillah, in a good place in my relationship. I wasn't looking for anything. And I just got, like everyone else, like a suggested video on YouTube. In fact, the first video I ever watched from the RP scene was Richard Cooper. And I don't remember what it was about now. I think it was women who have had multiple sexual partners, something along those lines. And all of a sudden, things started clicking into place, like tick, 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 tick. It's like, wow, like literally like in the Matrix, when you take the red pill and suddenly you see everything for what it is. It was like that. And it complemented very nicely with many of the experiences that I had been through. And I felt like, you know what? I need to share these experiences with other young men, because I'm still relatively young myself, 32. I'm not like a 50-year-old man. So I can connect with the younger audience whilst sharing with them experiences that typically a man in his mid to late 40s would have, because that is the advantage I had of getting married so young and having had so many children at such a young age. So that's why I do what I do, particularly online. I feel like it's actually a duty. I have to,
Yeah,
because I want men to avoid many of the mistakes that I made.
alhamdulillah. Mashallah, very interesting. So basically, it started off with subjective experience,
Mm.
and it turned out into like something um, you enjoy doing. Basically, I heard in one of your videos you enjoy talking about this stuff and sharing your experience. So that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy talking about it, and I feel like it's a responsibility at the same time. So it's not like I'm doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I really want to, and at the same time, I know that it's important. You see, because look, whenever people ask me, Mehdi, why do you do this? My answer to them is always the same: preserve the nuclear home. You can sum up my mission in 4 or 5 words: preserve the nuclear home. I think that's 4 words, which is help as many people as possible to raise their children in an environment where both mom and dad are in the household together. Why? Because children do best when they have both parents. Equally, children do worst when they are raised, well, in a single mother household, they do the worst. The stats are clear on this. But even in a single father household, it's still problematic. The best environment is when mom and dad are together.
So just to clear the term nuclear family, I believe it's more than like an academic term. So what do
Sure.
you mean by nuclear family? So is it
The nuclear family is where mother and father are both living under one roof. They're not divorced. The
okay?
biological mother and the biological father, not step parent, biological parents are both living together under one roof, and the children are living with their biological parents.
Okay, okay, yes, understood. So yes, I understand where you're coming from. I also heard you have a degree in sports science. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. My background actually is this is all relatively recent for me. Only in the past couple of years or so, I've been doing this stuff online. But my background is in sports and exercise science. I've got quite a lengthy experience in competitive sport as well. I swam to quite a high level competitively, played rugby to a decent level, and karate as well, martial arts. I got my black belt in martial arts,
Mhm.
specifically Shotokan. I believe it's called Shotokan. So I have quite, and that's all, again, my father, Jazakallah khair, he was the one who pushed me through all of that. And I studied sports and exercise science, which is a huge mistake, by the way. If you enjoy sports, don't think that you're going to enjoy studying sports. It's like,
That's
it's
that's
nothing to do with each other. It's nothing to do with each other, wallahi. It might as well have just been called science, which I hate. And
okay.
I'm not throwing any shade to the scientists out there. We need you guys, but I can't stand it. I can't stand science. So that was a big mistake. But yeah, that's my background. Alhamdulillah. I didn't do anything with my degree. I mean, I went to Saudi Arabia and I taught for a year, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without that. But any degree would have sufficed for that. Aside from that, yeah, my degree was useless, basically. Don't know how I
Yeah.
got through it. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Just a quick question regarding the degree thing. I recently watched your video about giving like tips for younger men, and
Mm.
you mentioned that you shouldn't get a degree if you're not really sure what you're going to do with it later, or if you really want to do the thing you're studying.
Yeah,
Uh,
the problem with
yeah,
the degree now is that it requires so much money. You see, so
that
when I
was
went,
yeah. In the UK,
mm,
the money aspect of it is a very big aspect, so it plays a
mm,
big role. In other countries, it's not the same thing. So in Germany, for
right,
example, it's not the same thing. You can basically get a degree for I don't know 3,000 euros for all the 3 years you're gonna study.
okay, very good.
So what do you think about that?
Look, the bottom line is this. So yes, you're right. In the UK, let's use the extreme example. Let's say your degree is free. It doesn't matter. Do any degree then. I would encourage you, if you don't have any other plan, that is any other serious plan, and the only other thing for you to do is to stay at home or to get a basic job, then do a degree in anything. Doesn't matter. Why? Because it gives you that status. We can't deny this. that middle class status. And also, and you do learn how to critically think and analyze and so on. And a degree has its benefits in that regard. You know, how to work hard. Degrees are hard. You know, I've never heard someone tell me my degree was easy. Degrees are hard, doesn't matter what you do. But here's the big but. If you are going to be taking out interest-based loans, okay, which is what student finance is here in the West, interest-based loans, which is haram fundamentally. And then on top of that, you don't even know what you want to do. This is a waste of time, because a student loan debt can never be written off. Okay, some people say after 25 years it will. Yeah, but until then, you are going to have to be making repayments, interest-based repayments, let me tell you, until that 25-year period is up. You really want to play that game for a degree that you're not even sure whether you like it or not? In my case, I studied a degree that I really disliked and I didn't like it. But subhanAllah, because I was married and I had so many children at such a young age, I was entitled to a lot of grants, free money. I was making anywhere from £7,000 to £10,000 a year at university, free. Not a loan, the grants, they were given to me because I had a wife and 3 kids. And I used that money to pay for my degree at the exact same time. So when I was in uni, the degree was £3,300 a year. So I could comfortably pay for my own degree with my own money from the grants and not have to worry about any debts. Alhamdulillah, I don't have any debts, alhamdulillah. And certainly not from student loan. So unless and again, grants now have been eliminated for the most part in the UK, at least. They're minimal, minimal. Unless you've got money to throw away, in which you shouldn't be throwing away any money, or unless you are sure, I want to become a doctor. Okay, you have to do a degree. I want to become a chemical engineer. Fine, you have to do a degree. I want to become a dentist. Fine, you have to do a degree. These are professions that require you to have a degree. I'm with you. But if you don't know, oh, maybe this, maybe that, no, I don't recommend it.
Okay. Yes, I understand. I understand, and I believe it's true. I believe especially in the UK, the money topic is a big thing. In Germany, it's not that big, but lots of young people have the same issue of not knowing how or what to decide to study, and then they end up losing like 5-6 years doing something, and then they just throw it away literally. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So inshallah, we can delve into the first topic, which is about haya. So when you hear the word haya, what do you understand under this term?
Shyness.
Shyness. Okay, so there's another term which modern women like quite a bit, which is women empowerment. And then the the term woman empowerment, it gives me the feeling that it's something like exactly the opposite of shyness, exactly the opposite of what we understand from shyness. So do you believe women empowerment, or do you believe this term or this philosophy is basically trying to get rid of the concept of haya and the concept of shyness?
For women to make the assertion that they require empowering, automatically presume that they are disempowered in the first place, in which case the burden of explaining their disempowerment is upon the claimant. I would like to know from women, how are you disempowered? What are you disempowered by? Who's disempowering you? Yani, what's the issue exactly? If you are saying you want to be more like men, you know, the workplace and career and so on, I will answer you, you don't gain the same satisfaction and happiness from career success, conquering, as men do. Actually, if it comes, especially if it comes at the expense of you having children, meaning you sacrificed your career, you sacrifice children to have a career, your career becomes a misery for you. Men gain happiness, satisfaction from conquering, even if it's in the workplace, whether it's conquering countries or conquering his new job promotion. Men gain that type of satisfaction and happiness. The most unhappy demographic of woman is a woman who's in her mid-40s earning $100,000 a year and is single and childless. She's the most unhappy demographic of women. I cannot tell you the amount of women whom I have spoken to, my father has spoken to, who we've seen online. They have PhDs, they're doctors, they are extremely successful in what they do. High powered women, CEOs, very successful women, but it came at a cost. And that cost was she couldn't find a husband. At least she couldn't, she believed no man met her, was at her level. And so she didn't marry any man. And as a result of that, she didn't have any children. You want to know the most unhappy demographic of woman? It's a woman earning $100,000 a year in her mid 40s and has no children. That's the most unhappy demographic of women. So to answer your question, do women require empowering, and is this affecting their hayat? Well, what they define as empowerment is embodying masculine traits, strong and independent. You have a bad case of penis envy. You want to be more like a man. I'm sorry, that's a you problem. You got a bad case of penis envy. And if you want to be more like a man, you want to be successful in the workplace, yes, you are going to have to be more masculine. Feminine traits don't get you far in business and the workplace. You're going to have to be more disagreeable, argumentative, direct. Those are quite masculine qualities. If you want to succeed in the workplace, you are going to have to sacrifice your femininity. You are going to have to become a man. A dysfunctional man, but a man nonetheless, which is why a lot of women have penis envy in the first place, because they see that men succeed with their these qualities. So she thinks, I need to become like that, not realizing this makes her a defective woman. She's neither a man nor a woman. She's a defective woman. So, there's a cost. There's a cost to this behavior. She must ask herself, is it worth it? I can tell you from with this experiment called feminism, this 60-year experiment has failed abysmally. We have a generation of miserable women, a generation of them. They are not happy. They are successful in their careers, but they're miserable. What does that tell you?
Yeah, so some of them would say, you talked about haya and you defined it as shyness. Some would say basically haya is the same as having a weak personality, and if you want to, they would basically say the argument would go like this. So where in Islam is it said for a woman to have a weak personality? There is nothing like this. So basically we don't need haya.
Okay, let's discuss this first thing, that shyness is weakness. Let me tell you something, because women often equate submission as weakness as well. And that she believes that being strong and independent, that this is strength. Let me tell you, let me just shut that down right now. This strong and independent facade is a weakness. Let me tell you why. When a woman can submit to her husband, she is placing her future in the direction of her future in the hands of her husband. Yeah, this is a big, and this is not an easy thing for a woman to do. That's strength. That is strength. That's hard to submit to somebody else and have to follow his lead and command. That is strength. This business of I'm strong and independent, boss babe, no, you're weak. Why? Because you're scared. You are scared to submit to a man, which is what makes you happiest, by the way. You are scared to do so, and as a result, you become this weird Frankenstein creation of half man, half woman. A woman trying to become a man, but she's not a man, she's still a woman. You are Frankenstein creation. Thinking that this is the way to be, you're weak because you don't have the strength to submit to him, to have that shyness. You don't have the strength. That requires strength. And that's feminine strength, but she doesn't have it.
So it's basically the strength of taking the risk, basically, to be under the submission of her male counterpart, and not having to basically try and make sure that you have money in your pocket. So if anything happens, you're. That's also an argument that is quite often used. They say,
a lot of women will use this argument. Oh, but what if the marriage doesn't work out? I'm going to need my own money. And I will address it like this. Yes, there is a risk that your marriage will not work out. But let me tell you something. There is a much greater risk that you will be miserable with money if you do not submit to a man in marriage. The likelihood of you being happy is greater if you submit to a good man than if you submit to your boss at work. By the way, you're still submitting to a man. You like his concubine at work, no problem. But submitting to your husband, this is a mushkila. Why? So that happiness, if that's what you want, I can tell you, sister, what makes you most happy is submitting your will to a good man who you can call your husband. And the likelihood of you being happy is greater by doing so in a marriage than by pursuing your career. Is there a risk? Yes. There's a risk when you open the door and cross the road that you might be hit by a truck and die. There's a risk in everything. Everything there's a risk. But we want to talk about risk minimization. And there is a much lower risk that you will be unhappy if you submit your will to a good man, a good Muslim man.
On point, brother. So, okay, we can, inshallah, leave this area. We talked about, the haya, and that it's the strength in itself and not weakness. So they would say also, the women, they would say, haya is not just for women, it's also for men. So how come you want shyness from women and not for men?
I mean, a man should be shy as well, and there's a time to be shy. For example, let's say you're sitting in a halaqah with the sheikh. You need to be shy. You need to lower your voice. You're with your father, your mother. You need to show hayat. Maybe your father says something you disagree with. You need to have hayat, shyness in how you go about dealing with him. Yes, shyness is important, but there's a time and a place for it. Context is important, and the expression will be different from man to woman. How a woman expresses it and how a man expresses it. Yes, and we shouldn't get really too hung up on this. A man needs to be shy at times as well, like for the examples that I just mentioned.
Yes. Okay, going on to now the male perspective, we have terms such as rujula from Arabic, which is masculinity. We have the term alpha male. We have manliness. Also, most feminists equate this with the abusiveness of the husband. What's the difference between manliness and, let's say, harshness in muamala, or harshness in speech and act and so on?
That's a difficult question, wallahi. I mean, I wouldn't know how to define it. We have to go back to the a'mal of the Prophet ﷺ with his wives. This is the best guide. And anything that is beyond that is a transgression. That's the best advice I can give. But there'd have to be, a specific example brought about. The Prophet ﷺ is the best example. That's his guide. That is his guide for us.
It's true. Okay, so how do you basically define manliness? What are some traits of manliness?
Protect, provide, responsible, take on responsibility, protection, provision. If I had to summarize it in just 3 words, that would be it. Of course, we have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give him his rights and so on and so forth. But outside of that, protect, provide, and it's not much more than that, really, to be honest with you. Leadership qualities, he has to be a good leader, decisive, assertive. We don't want to really make this too complicated.
Okay, good. Yeah, because if you just say, let's say, provide and protect, I believe most of the nowadays simps would say they do both things, basically. They provide and protect.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just protection and provision. It's also knowing when to, okay, so let's say you're dealing with your woman. It's knowing when to disagree with her. It's knowing when to say, no, we're not going that way. We're not going left, we're going right. And to be comfortable with her disliking you in that moment. You're the leader of the household. You have to make it. Someone has to make a decision. And a lot of women who have control issues find this very difficult. And I will say to you this, look, when we elect a leader of a country, is every single action that he takes and decision that he makes going to be the right one? No, he's going to make mistakes. You still have to listen to him. If we had the Khalifa and we lived under Khilafah, the Khalifa is going to make mistakes. You still have to obey him. Still. I say the same with your husband. Yes, he's going to make mistakes. Yes, there will be times when you are right and he is wrong. So long as he is not, like, it's not a major thing, like he's drinking alcohol or something, you still have to obey him. Still. And that requires strength. Men also have to obey, by the way. If there was a Khalif or whatever the case may be, we also have to obey. In the workplace, you have to obey. You have to obey your manager. To the ladies in work right now, you have to obey your manager, even if you think he's wrong. Why do you not have a problem obeying your manager, but you have a problem obeying your husband? Because he gives you a paycheck? Because the manager gives you a paycheck? Let me ask you a question. Will the manager be willing to put his life on the line for you, to die for you, if the occasion required it? Probably not. Your husband would die for you in an instant. He wouldn't even think twice about it if the occasion required it. Therefore, who is more deserving of disobedience, your manager or your husband?
Yes, so I love this analogy, honestly, because as you know, most of the feminists, they try to get this career position, and by definition, when you're trying to achieve something in the area of careers and so on, you have to submit to a boss, you have to submit to someone who's higher than you in work. So so basically, why don't you do the same thing to your husband? What's the difference? Why yeah. So I got a question asking basically, what does it mean to submit to her husband?
To obey.
What to obey?
So long as he is not asking you to do it. Look, there is no obedience to the creation if it entails disobedience to the creator, right? Your husband says to you, drink alcohol. He tells you to take off your hijab. He tells you to, I don't know. This is all acts of disobedience to the creator. There is no obedience to the creation if it entails disobedience to the creator. Okay? For anyone. Yes. But if he is asking you to do something that is not haram, but maybe you dislike it, maybe it's not to your liking, obey. You have to obey, yes. Let me ask you something, sisters. Do you expect your husband to die on command if the occasion required it? I had this conversation with one of my girls once. So if we went out together and the background story was she was not wearing her hijab properly, and I said to her, never mind halal, haram, how do you wear it? I said to her, I want you to imagine a scenario. 5 big men, they come surround us, all of them 6'3", carrying knives. They want to kidnap you and kill me. All right. All of a sudden, an opening opens up in this crowd of 5 men, and I have 2 options. Option number 1, I can push you through the gap and you run away whilst I fight off these guys and I probably die, get stabbed to death. Or option number 2, I run away because I can run very fast and I leave them to have you, which is what they want all along. They don't really want me, they want you. And then they will have their wicked way with you. Which one would you expect me to do? And of course, the answer is obvious. You would expect me to push you through that gap, you run away, and then I fight them and I potentially die. Yes? She said yes. I said, okay. If you expect me to die for you, I expect you to wear your hijab and abaya properly when I tell you to. On command. No discussion. Otherwise, me and you, we can't go out together. Because I ain't dying for you. Why the hell should I put my life on the line for you when you can't even wear a piece of cloth for me? What are you talking about? When you frame it in this context, you see, it puts things into perspective.
Yeah, it starts to make sense, yeah.
Obedience. Obey. Yes, you must obey, whether you like it or not. So long as he's not asking you to do anything haram. And again, I will say equally to the men. Power is a heady thing because you have power now. She is under your leadership. Now you have, you have a degree of power over her. You must be responsible with it. Don't overburden her too much. Don't ask too much from her. Yani don't give her an opportunity to disobey you because you are becoming burdensome with your requests from her. You see? Yes. Be easy. Don't make it too hard for her because then eventually she will disobey you. So when you have this good balance A woman who wants to obey and a man who tries to be as easy as possible. We have a nice balance here. You see?
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. Um, Another question, brother, regarding gender roles. What's your stance on basically men who, let's say, they say, okay, I'm not in a position to try and search for the submissive wife who, who stays at home. She's a woman who just, takes care of the house and raises the children and so on. So I'm going to search for a woman, she's not like an extreme feminist, but she would not be like, she doesn't see that housework is really something that is a woman thing to do, a woman job, or something else, like, I don't know, like doing the chores or whatever. So what do you think about that? Should the man really like settle for something like that or not?
The problem is, especially in the Muslim community, is that a sister will say to you, I don't have to cook and clean. Yeah, you can't force me to cook and clean. But at the same time, she is worse than a feminist. Actually, Muhammad Hijab has addressed this. She is worse than a non-Muslim feminist. Why? Because the non-Muslim feminist, she will at least agree to go 50-50 down the middle on everything, including cooking and cleaning. She agrees to this. We go 50-50 on everything. The Muslim not feminist is even worse than this. Why? Because she says to you, I don't have to cook and clean, and my money is my money. So, yani, what are you? You're a leech. This is what you are. You're a leech. You're a vampire, a blood-sucking, leech-like vampire. You don't bring any value to the table. What are you, yani? You're a sperm receptacle. You're a hole. That's it. You bring no value to the table. So, yes, if a brother finds himself in this situation and he wants to get married and he doesn't have the leverage, maybe he has to have that discussion, but at least 50-50, and proper 50-50. You pay half, I pay half. If she disagrees to this, then tell her, look, I need time. Give me time. Give me a few years. I'm going to become, inshallah. You just have to be patient. I'm working hard. I'm doing what I do. Be patient. And please, at the same time, please, you take care of the household. I'll take care of my work. We do our best together. And eventually, a few years down the line, you will be comfortable. I'll be entering my stride as a man in my career, and you will be comfortable. That's my response to that.
Okay, brother. Another question which came in. Basically, what do you think of using the concept of shura? Shura is basically like kind of I don't know, like this democratic type of, looking what the majority like or whatever, or sees fit. What do you think about applying this concept into the realm of marriage? Like, I don't know. Yeah, so that's the question. What do you think?
So basically, like a democracy in the marriage.
Yes.
Yes. No. Okay. So marriage is not a partnership. And take this out of your head to the audience. Marriage is not a partnership. Marriage is headship. The husband is the head, and the wife is what's underneath the head. Where the head goes, the body follows. Where the head goes, the body follows. There is no democracy in a marriage. Now, does that mean you shouldn't ask your wife her opinion? No, absolutely not. I have mentioned this a few times in my streams in the past, that my wife can see things that I can't. She has a different way of thinking. She has a different way of looking at a situation, and that has proven to be very valuable to me in the past. And I cannot deny this. And sometimes I will ask her off of my own accord, what do you think about this? Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I didn't see it like that. No problem. This is fine. But ultimately, if I am saying one thing and she disagrees with me, who do you think is going to have the last say? The head. If the body wants to go left and the head wants to go right, where do you think the body is going to go? It's going to go where the head goes. So Look, and this is not a foreign concept, even in the workplace. And again, I say to the women who have a problem with this, why do you ask for this democracy in your marriage when you don't even have it in your job? If the manager says to you, we're going left, you're going left, whether you like it or not. If the CEO says this is the new direction for the company, even if you fight and scream and kick and all the rest of it, that's the new direction for the company. You have no problem with this. So why do you have a problem when the CEO of your marriage, your husband, says to you, we're going this way, and you want to fight him and you want democracy? What democracy? No. If he wants to consult with you, that's at his discretion. And like I said, I have found it to be very valuable at times to consult with my wife. She sees things differently to me. Ultimately, I have the last say, and that's the bottom line.
Of course, that's always what. Also, when I talk to some of the brothers, like I ask, what, like, at the end, ultimately, what if it happens that both have different opinions, whose opinions shall be the primary opinion to go for? And they basically say, brother, it's the marriage is not something like, my opinion and your opinion. It's like, you just have to have a discussion and so forth and so on. And I don't have an issue with that, but I always have an issue with having the basic concept of what happens if, like, in the worst case scenario, if you both have two exclusive opinions, they can't just go with each other. Who will have the authority at the end of the day? That's I believe a very important point to be established even before getting into all this marriage thing.
And this is not a foreign concept, like I say, whether it's in a business, whether it's in a charity organization, whether it's in an army, whether it's the people running the country. This is not a foreign concept. The president will sit down with the vice president and the whoever else, and he will ask their opinion. The general of the army will sit down with his lieutenants, and he will ask their opinion. The CEO will sit down with the COO and the CFO and ask their opinion. But ultimately, who has the final say? The president, the general, the CEO. And it has to be like this. It is the most effective way of leading. And sometimes it upsets people, but it's still the most effective way. You want to know why? Because a communitarian method of leading, which is where everyone has a say, and we cannot do anything until everyone agrees, you end up doing nothing. This is nonsense. This is madness. It's almost impossible for everyone to agree on all issues all the time. It's absolutely impossible. This will never happen. Which means what? Sometimes you will have a group who will be disgruntled and unhappy. And that's the cost, the price of leadership. That's the price of progress. I will even add to that. In order to progress the company, the army, the country, in order to progress, some people are going to have to be left unhappy because they disagree with your policy, or they disagree with the new marketing strategy, or they disagree with the new war strategy. It doesn't matter. A decision must be made in order for progress to happen. That's why you appointed him in the first place. President, CEO, general, whatever the case may be.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, another question, then we can, inshallah, switch to the next topic. It's basically saying that why is it so that the statistics say that after divorce, the child being with the mother is worse than being with the father, although from a Sharia perspective, this should be the case.
This should or shouldn't?
Should be the case. I'm not familiar with the fiqh perspective on this, to be honest.
Okay, so are they asking why is it that kids do worse in single mother households than in single father households? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, so first and foremostly, I recommend all of you watching to, and if you're, how many live viewers do we have right now?
We don't have many. We have about 4 to 6.
Like the video, please, guys. Barakallahu fikum. 4 to 6 is better than none. Like the video. Jazakumullah khair. The first book I recommend you to read is a book by Dr. Warren Farrell called The Boy Crisis. It's a 15-hour audio book, and a tremendous book. And I thoroughly recommend you listen to it. And he gives all the stats, all the details, all the research that has been done on single mother households, comparison to single father households, in comparison to the nuclear household. And children do worse on almost every single metric: education, health, cognitive ability. Every single metric you can think of, children do worse in single mother households. Why is this? There's a number of reasons, but it can be summarized as follows. Women are more empathetic than men and have more patience for disobedient behavior from their children than men do. The problem is, this empathy can become a curse once the children get a bit older and start to misbehave, because now she is so empathetic that she doesn't want to upset the child by telling the child no or by punishing the child. So now this creates a monster of a child who, because his mother would always think about him, he also only thinks about himself. You see, it creates a monster. And these children as well, because they are usually, it's more mothers struggle to discipline their children. They tend to be, particularly the boys, more aggressive. 75% of all high school, 100%, my apologies, of all high school shooters in America were from single mother households. 75% of all juvenile inmates under the age of 18 all came from single mother households. Why? Because these boys in particular become very aggressive because nobody was there to check their behavior when they were younger. What's the role of a father? To police his children before the police do. To put his son in particular in check, even if that means a slap every now and again, before the police slap him with a prison sentence. And it's very difficult for a woman to be able to do this because it's not from her nature to discipline a child like that. It's very hard. And anyway, the children don't take her seriously for the most part. They don't take her seriously. You know, we can relate. Most of us can relate to getting away more with our mothers than with our fathers. I can certainly relate to that.
That's true. Okay, so we can, inshallah, transfer to the other topic. I don't believe we will have enough time to talk about this topic of narcissism and the Muslim egos and stuff like that. So we just jump to the topic of red pill. So let's start off by asking why, in your intro, is it called the Red Mahdi? What's the reason for that?
I've gotten rid of that name now. I used that for a while because it was actually an idea from one of my one of the guys who follow me, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me use that. I've gotten rid of it now simply because I feel like it gives paints a too narrow picture of the different topics that I talk about. So, but I still use that intro sometimes because I haven't created a new one yet. So I need to create a new intro. But that's the answer to that.
Okay, so what's your position on red pill? What do you think of red pill?
Red pill provides a very beneficial education into intersexual relationship dynamics, specifically understanding the psyche of a woman, why women think the way they do, why they behave the way they behave in an intimate relationship setting. Can we take everything from it? No, of course not, especially the haram things. And it is obvious, get rid of it, throw it away. Okay, but the beneficial things, that the educational elements, the educational aspects, you know, you can take those. Why do women who have had slept with so many men struggle to pair bond with a man? Why do women with daddy issues struggle to pair bond with a man? There's so many things you can take from it. Why do women lose interest in a man who pays too much attention to her, gives her too much attention and love, doesn't have any boundaries, will break all the rules for her? Why do women lose respect and interest in this type of man? Red pill provides an excellent lens for you to be able to understand that. Does our religion talk about these things? Some of them it does, yes. Some of them it doesn't. And that doesn't make our deen deficient. You can't learn computer science from the Quran. I'm sorry, I don't care which book of hadith you bring me or which tafsir of Quran you bring me. You cannot learn computer science from the Quran. Does that make our religion deficient? No, it's nothing to do with it. And the same goes for red pill. It talks about things that are not necessarily covered in our deen, and that's fine. That doesn't make the deen deficient any more than by saying, "Oh, because I can't learn computer science from the deen, that means I can't." It's deficient. No, it's not deficient at all. It's two separate things completely.
Okay, so this is understood. What's your position on black pill, and how do you define it?
Black pill is simply people who have given up. They believe the game is rigged. They believe if you are not a certain height or you don't look a certain way, then there's no hope for you whatsoever. And what black pill is that they have taken some truths and mixed it with a lot of nihilism. So there is no doubt that women have a greater attraction to taller men. There is no doubt that women have a greater attraction to men of a particular makeup in their face, jawline and nose and all that stuff. Yeah, they go really deep into the details. The problem is them adopting this nihilistic outlook that perhaps they are at a disadvantage, which is true. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They believe they have no chance, and then they internalize that belief so that when they approach women, they are approaching her with this energy. I have no chance anyway. That's a put-off in the first place. And it becomes this perpetuating, self-fulfilling prophecy of, you see, I told you so. And what I say to those men is, do the best with what you have, and then whatever it is that you are doing in your professional life, become the best at that as well. Do the best with what you have, and in your professional life, become the best. Period. Okay, I agree with you. Men who are tall and good looking and so on, they have an advantage. Are you telling me a tall man who looks good has never been cheated on? Please. This is so common. They made a whole Netflix program out of it called Sex Life. It was #1 in the UK, in India, in America. #1. The guy was the archetypal Chad, like proper Chad face, big home, mashallah, rich, successful in his career. His wife was still cheating on him. Still cheating on him. Why? Because he was the nice guy. The nice guy. So don't think, any tall, handsome men are immune from this. That's proof. And she was cheating on him with a guy, by the way, who wasn't as good looking as him, by the way, and wasn't anywhere near as established as him, but he was like that bad guy. This is it. Don't get too hung up on it. That's what I say.
Okay, so I wanted to get into this whole debate of red pill and Islam. I have had come over 2 arguments which were made online. If you have other arguments, you can also add them to the list. The 2 arguments, to be honest, I found them flawed. I'm gonna tell you which these 2 arguments are, and then I'm gonna tell you why I believe they're flawed, and then I'm gonna give you my perspective on the thing, and then we can discuss that, inshallah. So the first argument is basically saying that there is difference between descriptive and prescriptive teachings. So saying, like, for example, there's nothing wrong with taking descriptive teachings outside of Quran and Sunnah, outside the Islamic tradition. But when it comes to prescriptive teachings, and the difference between descriptive and prescriptive is basically saying how things are, or basically how things work, like the ontology of things. And prescriptive is basically like someone giving you medication or telling you what to do and how to do it. And the argument says that from an Islamic point of view, you should not be taking any prescriptions from outside the Sharia, if that's how I understand the argument correctly.
I mean, I can't say for sure, but that sounds correct from my recollection.
Okay, so in that case, I believe the argument is majorly flawed for many reasons. One of which, prescription is basically what everyone does, every Muslim and non-Muslim, when he goes to a doctor and he has some disease or whatever, and the doctors tell him you should do this and you should not do that. So basically that's a prescription. and it's obviously not mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah how to act in a certain manner when you have a certain disease or whatnot. So I believe this is a flawed argument. What do you think? Do you think it's also flawed for the same reason?
I mean, that sounds logical to me. That sounds logical, but I don't know if there is an exception for this type of discussion. I know what you're referring to now, but that sounds logical to me. But I don't know. I'm sure there'd be a counter argument that I haven't thought of.
Okay. So basically, and descriptive, of course, saying descriptive things, basically, that's like engineering or saying how a car works or whatever. Of course, as you said, or computer science, you don't get this kind of knowledge from the Quran or the Sunnah. You have to go to university and learn this stuff. So basically, both aspects, descriptive and prescriptive, can be gained outside the Islamic tradition. So in that case, the argument would be flawed. Another argument basically says that it's a kind of equalizing red pill with feminism, saying they're both the two sides of the same coin, basically. The feminists go this way, and the red pills go this way. And I've heard the response of Brother Daniel about this one, and it was it's a very good response, mashallah. And it's basically saying that you can't equate basically Sam Harris, which is a retarded atheist, let's say, and C.S. Lewis, a Christian who actually defends theism in an academic and rational way. So even if both of them are not Muslims, they for sure have different levels. They for sure are not at the same level of being bad in the same way. And of course, that's true for even if you look at the Sirah, not all kuffar or not all non-Muslims were the same. There were different levels of kuffar, different levels of. You can't equate Abu Jahl, for example, with the uncle of the Prophet, Abu Talib. So in that case, this argument would also be flawed. I believe. What do you think?
Very good, very good. Yes, and Danny Haqiqat did a brilliant podcast, and I actually have him on my podcast next Wednesday, inshallah ta'ala. But yes, I agree with you, and I never thought of it like that. I never thought of it like that before. But it's a brilliant response.
Okay, so coming to my argument now, or my opinion, let's say, and we can discuss that. You mentioned in one of your podcasts that you think basically the people who have a problem with red pill have a problem with the name itself. So if you get rid of the name, you get rid of the problem. I believe this is for a big part of it is true. In my case, especially, I believe terms have a very big effect on people, and I believe they have to be taken very seriously when used in let's say when used in things like Islam, when coming from a Muslim perspective and so on. And my background in this is Aqidah background. So I'm talking about this from Aqidah perspective, a pure Aqidah perspective. From what I've read in the Islamic tradition, I made the observation that taking terms, especially if they're not originating from the Islamic tradition, could be very problematic.
Interesting.
In the long run, basically. So one of the scholars which have discussed this issue is Ibn Taymiyyah. And Ibn Taymiyyah, basically, he has like a kind of philosophy which he used in most of his books and most of his writings, in which he basically takes terms like these, which are packed with different meanings, and starts to break them down. And saying, for example, let's say, I don't know, red pill, for example. If someone would ask Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, are you a red piller? His answer would be, what do you mean by red pill? Yeah. So if you mean by red pill, for example, that the nuclear family is a very important thing, and that the husband is the leader of the family and so on, then I'm red pill. If that's what you mean by red pill. If you mean by red pill, trying out as many women as you can before you're getting married, then I'm not red pill, and so on.
Mm.
So basically, that would be the methodology of Ibn Taymiyyah when talking about these things. And in general, it is not problematic to use terms like these for making categorizations or whatever, or saying, like, for example, saying, I don't know, this is a male and this is a female. These are two categories.
Right. Right.
No Muslim scholar can come and say, you can't use the terms male and female.
Mm.
It's basically there's no issue with it. When you say male, nowadays it's not so obvious anymore, but when you say male, it should be obvious what you mean by that. And therefore, from an Islamic perspective, it's not an issue to use these terms. But when it comes to other terms which have multiple meanings inside of them, engraved in them, and movements and so on, like I don't know, feminism and red pill and black pill and all of the stuff, and democracy, all of these terms which have, or liberalism even, they are multi-layered. They're not just one meaning which is obvious, but they're multi-layered. They have different meanings in different contexts. And in that case, one can make the case basically that it's better to not use the term at all, if you don't have to, if you know what I mean.
I mean, Daniel Haqiqatju touched upon this actually beautifully in his podcast. And I recommend the audience to watch it if you haven't. Just type the Muslim Skeptic, and then I think it's his most recent one. It's the red pill one anyway. Just scroll, you'll see it. And he mentioned, is Islam a monotheistic religion? Meaning a religion whereby we worship one God. He said yes. So that means we are monotheists, right? We believe in monotheism. He said, well, if we are to take this opinion that you cannot identify with this word because it's not a word from the Quran and Sunnah, then also we would have to then infer that we are not monotheists, or we cannot call Islam monotheistic because the term or the word monotheism cannot be found anywhere in the Quran or Sunnah.
True.
And obviously this is ludicrous, right? If there is a word that suitably describes something, no problem, use it, regardless of whether we can find that exact word in the Quran or Sunnah or not. And different languages will have different word sets. So I find that to be a very excellent way of him describing that. And actually, I didn't know that. I didn't know that there wasn't a word for monotheism in the Quran and Sunnah.
That's true. That's true. So, as I said, when it comes to usually categorizing things and explaining things which have basically a very limited amount of meanings, or it's very clear, then you can make this case. You can only really make this case of letting it be, or using or not using specific terms when they have multiple meanings inside of them. And I wanted to use this example for red pill. Of course, if you search for the definition of red pill, you're not going to find some academic, definition for it. So I found this definition on Urban Dictionary. Urban Dictionary. So basically, Urban Dictionary is a dictionary for everyone to, for the slang language, you define a word, and based on what people think, they can upvote this definition, say this definition is correct, or they can downvote it and say it's incorrect. And this is one of the definitions I found. So one definition I found on the website was saying that red pill is accepting reality for what it is, but also it usually means that the liberal has become more right-winged. Okay. So this was inside the definition. Now, it could be the case that this definition is basically somewhat just made it up, and nobody really takes that definition seriously. But I found that this definition had more than 2,200 upvotes and about only 700 downvotes, which means that a big majority have accepted this definition as basically reasonable.
I like the beginning of it, seeing reality for what it is. And you can take that from the Matrix, seeing reality for what it is and accepting it for what it is, accepting female nature for what it is. Red pill is, and Rolo has mentioned this before, it's not about hating women. It's about not hating women for what they can never be. You see, broken expectation is the cause of a lot of heartache and a lot of headache. But if you can accept that a woman can never be a certain way, or she will always be a certain way, then you can make peace with this. You know, you can say, okay, fine, I accept this. And this is actually beneficial. You make peace with reality. Akhi, you have to forgive me. I have to leave. I have to make a move right now. But
Right.
yani, this has been a pleasure, Akhi. And mashallah, and you're intellectual. I like it. You're intellectual. Allah barik.
It was great to have you. Inshallah, we can repeat this session, inshallah,
Inshallah
anywhere
ta'ala.
else. جزاك الله خير and سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
Ameen.
السلام عليكم. Thank you again.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.